Hello, Lovely Tang here, aka your mama on a mission. So it is actually midnight, and so it's the next day, but I am finally having a moment to read, and I'm super exhausted, but I'm gonna just read half of the chapter. And what I realize is that the chapters are longer than I thought, so I won't be able to always complete the full chapter in one reading because it depends on the time that I start reading and my energy level, but it'll get done just the same. So we're at a chapter 11, and it says, Conceit is a fog that envelops a man's real character beyond his own recognition. It weakens his native ability and strengthens all his insecurities. Napoleon Hill. So chapter 11, Fiji and beyond. And I have a notebook handy and a pen. He stepped onto the tarmac. The air was thicker than he had imagined it would be. The runway was still. The runway was lined with palm trees. This is truly paradise, he thought to himself as his driver took him through the streets of a local village. Having grown up in a beach town himself, Greg figured nothing could be much better than what he had experienced back home. That was until he discovered Fiji. Welcome to our island, the hotel attendant said as Greg checked into what would be his new home for the next few days. His room was very elegant, and the panoramic views of the ocean nearly took his breath away. There was something spiritual in the landscape, which he felt as he toured the property. The people were pleasant. The flowers were in bloom, and a feeling of incredible relaxation started to overcome his sense of curiosity. The island's latest tourist had no idea whom he was there to meet or why Buckland and his friends had chosen this location. But he was delighted they had. Reading his itinerary, he saw that dinner plans had been made for 7 o'clock, so he had an hour or so to enjoy the sunset before he headed back in. As he grabbed a chair under a nearby cabana awning, he could not help but notice a gentleman writing feverishly in a notepad. Excuse me, Greg interrupted. I see you are really going at it. May I ask what you're working on? Sure, the stranger replied. My name is John, by the way. The two shook hands. Mine's Greg. It's a pleasure. Sorry to interrupt you, but I recently started journaling my thoughts and was intrigued to see you doing it too. No problem. I only have an hour or so before I have to head out, John explained. I'm doing a speech here at the resort, and I've been working on my final thoughts. What are you speaking on? Success through failure. You're kidding, Greg said with a laugh. Failures seem to be my middle name, or was until recently. Mine is Hope, John replied with a smile. Really? Yes, John Hope Bryant. In fact, I run a nonprofit called Operation Hope. It helps people across the globe create better lives for themselves. Later, Greg did a Google check on his new friend and learned that John Bryant was a philanthropist and entrepreneur. On January 22, 2008, he had been appointed vice chair of the U.S. President's Council of Financial Literacy by President George W. Bush, and Operation Hope was America's first nonprofit social investment banking organization, now operating in 51 U.S. communities and South Africa, having raised more than $400 million for the private sector to empower the poor. Greg started. Wait, my eyes. I'm like so sick, but it started. Greg started in with his usual questioning. So tell me, I'm writing a book on this topic. Have you found any challenges along the way? Absolutely, Brian answered quickly. Yet I have learned that success simply comes from. Wait a second. Greg stopped his new acquaintance. Let me jot this down. He whipped out his trusty notepad as his new friend continued. Success simply comes from going from familiar to familiar without loss of enthusiasm. Success is simply going from familiar to familiar without without loss of enthusiasm. That's great, Greg responded, and it seems to be a common theme with those I have interviewed. Look, offered Bryant, we need to understand that as humans we make mistakes, but that does not mean that we are a mistake. There's a very big difference. Many people may think that it's easy for you to say, considering you are sitting here with your toes in the sand. Greg challenged. Let me share something with you, John replied. I went for a 6-month period when I was completely homeless. I understand what it is like to have nothing. I also quickly came to realize that poverty is not what's in your pocket, it's what you have in your head. Greg wrote in his pad with what Bryant said next. 10% of your attitude is determined by what life hands you, and 90% by how you choose to respond. So 10% your attitude, 10% of your attitude is determined by what life hands you. 10% of your attitude is determined by life, by what life hands you. Okay. All right, perfect. Funny thing is, being homeless was one of the greatest gifts I could have received. Why is that? It made me see things from a different perspective. Once homeless, I gained a new mindset. Hey, what else can you do to me? I'm at the bottom, man. What are you going to do? Tell me. No. He said, what are you going to do to me? Tell me no. I already had nothing when I walked through the door. Greg could not help but laugh at the speaker's expressive demeanor. Time flew by as the two exchanged stories and their individual quests. Brian shared his vision and mission with tremendous passion and conviction. He said, there is a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is a temporary economic condition, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind and a depressed condition of your spirit. And you must vow to never, ever, ever be poor again. Every wealth creator is crystal clear about two things, a vision and a mission. My mission for the poor is to help them see themselves differently. I can do this by helping to expose, to educate, to empower, and ultimately to inspire them to see themselves for what and who they really are, rich in spirit. They are assets, not liabilities, on the world's global balance sheet. Because I have seen time and time again that given an informed choice, the poor do not want a handout, but simply a hand up. They want the dignity that comes from doing for themselves. When you know better, you tend to do better. As John Bryant stood to say farewell, He offered Greg his card and said, "This was just what I needed. You got me pumped up for my speech. If I may ever serve you in any way, please call me." He he turned to leave, then paused. "You are onto something great. Stick with it. Never, ever, ever, ever give up." Greg shook Brian's hand, thanked him for his time, and then wrote, "Every wealth creator is crystal clear about two things: vision and mission." Greg continued to be impressed with how successful people are so willing to share their experiences and ask how they may be of service to another. Realizing that an hour had slipped by, he had to move quickly to make his dinner appointment. "I'll seat you now," the hostess said, making her way to a table for two overlooking the crashing surf. Greg sat and gazed at the menu, trying not to crane his neck to see who his mystery guest might be. As he pondered his selection, a familiar voice greeted him. "Hello, Greg." His chest tightened and he hesitated before looking up. Trying hard to find his voice, he couldn't believe she would travel all this way to be with him. With tremendous emotion, he said, "Hi, Mia. It's great to see you." Oh. As he rose to embrace her, his napkin got caught on his pants and dangled there awkwardly. She just laughed and said, "You're so silly." I wasn't expecting it to be Mia. The next few hours turned into the next few days as they recaptured their memories, shared new stories, and renewed their passion for each other. In their conversations that seemed never to end, Mia explained that Mr. Buckland had contacted her personally and informed her of Greg's journey. Why do I feel like I want to cry? This is really good. It was this communication that had inspired her to give their relationship another try. Jonathan Buckland had so generously helped her to arrange this rendezvous, knowing exactly what the young couple needed. Besides finding her former love, Mia also fell in love with the new man Greg had become. The man she had left was short-sighted and self-centered, not at all a man she had fallen in love with. Through her eyes, Greg now realized how far he had strayed from his original self and how much pain he had caused along the way. Mr. Buckland had helped him rediscover himself. John Buckland could see through the image of self-importance that Greg had portrayed and recognized the hidden potential in a Greg who desperately wanted to succeed. Now he had found his old self, but grown, renewed with purpose and mission. He had hoped that he could help others rediscover their true potential through sharing the incredible stories of the people he was meeting. What a gift Buckland had given him. Mia agreed, she said. "There are a lot of people who care about you, apparently. I'd like to lay claim to most of you, of course. And this is what I've hoped and prayed for, that we could be together like this." "Me too," Greg managed to say, but her words had him choked up. "You know who else called me besides Mr. Buckland?" Of course, he hadn't a clue, so Mia went on. "Your brother David. He wanted me to know that he has decided to seek help for his alcohol problem. He wanted me to tell you." "Why couldn't he have told me himself?" Greg demanded. "What, are you nuts?" She replied. Then she put her fingers to his lips as he tried to protest. He knew she was right in any case, because you two are too close. Even though you're not blood brothers, you're as close as any brothers could be. He loves you, Greg. He knows he has let you down, and he feels ashamed. So what's he going to do about it? He's going into a 28-day rehab as a first step. He'll take it from there and see what happens. All right, so I'm going to end here because I'm feeling super sleepy and I feel like I could literally fall asleep while I'm reading. But I'm loving this. I was not anticipating Mia meeting him in Fiji. And I love the notes. 90% of your attitude is directly... 90% of your attitude is determined by what life hands you, and 90% by how you respond. All right, so Lovlee Tang, aka your mama on a mission, signing out. We'll do part 2 next. All right, you take care. Bye-bye.